There we go. Meeting of the Community Justice Collaborating Council. Just by way of announcement, we're pleased, honored to have members of the Public Protection and Judiciary Committee, which is a committee of the County Board, present today. They are, in many respects, the parent committee of many of the stakeholders in this body, and Chair Fiedler at the last meeting suggested that they participate or at least attend today's hearing. So we welcome Supervisors Adam, Carlson, Ramberg, Leaf, and Chair Fiedler is also here. And you'll see on the agenda that he'll kind of update us and I think emphasize the connection between this body and the work of that committee. So welcome to those County Board Supervisors. We've called the roll. We do have a quorum, so I'm going to dispense with formal calling of the roll. The minutes from our May 8th meeting were included in your materials. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes? Hearing none, they'll stand approved as submitted. Public comment. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment this morning? Any public comments? Hearing none. Business for today's meeting, and first and maybe foremost is recognizing my friend, my colleague, my coworker, my confidant, my mentor, or whatever characterization I may want to make, and that's Judge Ed Vlack. I think many of you are aware that he chose not to run for re-election after serving 24 years as a circuit court judge here in St. Croix County. What you may not know is that he served for many years prior to that as family court commissioner for the county. And we were recounting the other day that in my tenure, we have had 2 family court commissioners, which is incredible. And I think most of you know I've been here 31 years. So Judge Vlack and now Commissioner Dunlap have really done yeoman service. As I said, Judge Vlack has distinguished himself not only as a judge, but as a leader here in St. Croix County. Initially, he was the first family treatment court or drug treatment court judge that we had. He then took on domestic violence as a target and a project for a specialty court. He served on too many committees at the state level for me to reference. Very active in child protection issues, very active in records management, and the list goes on. We've also been blessed these last number of years to have his friend and his confidant, Warden, his black lab, walk the halls of the back hallway. He goes into court periodically. I know has been of comfort to kids, et cetera. When we have those types of hearing, we're having an animal, a service dog, is certainly an option for Judge Vlack. So I wanted to recognize him today and all of his work for the county, all of his work for this group. But as I said, most critically, just being a friend and someone who I know I could count on for advice, some of which was welcome, some of which I appreciated in terms of his honesty with me. But we will miss him. His formal retirement party is the 25th of this month. It's going to be down in the jury assembly room. So I would encourage all of you, hopefully, to stop by and thank him for his service, for his dedication, his commitment, his passion, his calling, whatever we may want to refer to it, as a judge in this county, and for all of his work in St. Croix County. So with that said, Judge Vlack, congratulations on your retirement, and we recognize you.
So you're going to be stuck with me for about a half hour now, so just bear with me. So the key word that I heard from Judge Needham was that he talked about my commitment, and there were some days I thought maybe I should be committed because, no. There are a few things I want to say. First of all, I did pass around life lessons I've learned as a judge, and I put these together, and they're not in any necessary order, but one of the ones that really sticks out in my mind is number 11. I'll let you read that, and you can wonder why. But there's a couple of things I want to say. I am just a judge. This is my job. And I look around the room as everybody in here, and I think, how many of us are actually in the trenches? And I talk about the people downstairs in the lower level of this building, the dispatchers. They get the first call from the people who are having in pain. They need recognition. I looked at first responders. Same thing. And it goes down the line to the social workers and probation agents. So again, I appreciate your thanks to me, but again, I'm just a judge and I'm doing a job and I love my work. The other thing I want to mention is that I want to thank my staff publicly, Greta, Gina, and Olivia. They put up with me for I don't know how many years. They know me better than I know me. I also want to thank Clerk of Court, Register and Probate, Family Court Commissioner Steve Dunlap, Court Commissioner Tim Heckman, their staff. Justice Support, you've been there a number of times when I've needed you. I thank you. But my colleagues, Judge Enum, as he mentioned, he is a very close friend of mine. And I say that professionally because, again, we have had a lot of years under our belts. And I have to say, in my tenure, we've had 3 family court commissioners. So, but that's 51 years. I also want to thank Judge Waterman for his commitment to taking over the drug court when I retired, his commitment to CASA, and now his commitment to the proposed family treatment court. I want to thank Judge Nordstrand for taking over the treatment court and also the restitution court. Judge Smestad, I'm hoping when he becomes judge, will take over the DB court. There's one thing I want to mention about those programs, is that they're the end game. People have been through the system, and then they go into those programs. I am a very strong advocate that we do not get services to the people who need them soon enough. I have talked to Mr. Ghali, and I want to publicly thank Kara Albart. There's many times I've had people in the courtroom who needed services, didn't know how to ask, were afraid to ask, didn't know what they needed, and she helped. And I know there's a proposal for a navigator position. I hope that goes through, because we need to identify people as soon as possible who need the services and what they can get and what they can provide. Lastly, I want to thank all of you. I'm surprised I'm getting thanks for the work I've done to CJCC. When I got to the courthouse this morning, I asked Judge Enum's judicial assistant, where are the CJCC meetings held? I said, okay, they're in there. Okay, good, I'm glad. But the work that we do is never going to stop. And I can tell by looking around the room, some of you don't care about what I'm saying. So look at number 11 again. But again, I'm very concerned that the kids who are suffering from lockdowns and the lack of socialization, they're going to come to our system soon. Our system's going to be overwhelmed, and I'm hoping that we are prepared. So again, I thank you, but I also thank all of you for what you do and the commitment you made to this committee and this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Vlack. Next item on the agenda is adult treatment court updates. Judge Nordstrand, Kate.
I guess I'll start off. Is this working? Okay. First of all, just a couple of comments, and I'll let Kate fill us in a little bit as well. We have 9 participants presently. We're up from where we have been. We have 7 applicants pending, and so I'm optimistic that we will get our numbers back up into the mid-teens soon. We have the capacity, I suppose, for up to 20. That gets a little more difficult for everybody, but that's where we're at now. And I think things are going pretty well. As I said, I think at a meeting, one meeting or two ago, one of the challenges we're getting now in treatment court is a lot of folks are needing inpatient treatment either at the beginning of their process with treatment court or in the middle. You know, they're not successful in staying sober for a period of time. They're given the recommendation from our treatment provider that they need to go to a higher level of treatment, and so they're discharged from intensive outpatient treatment and need inpatient. So that's a challenge because we don't have ready access to inpatient treatment. Thankfully, Department of Corrections can provide some support, but often the wait time is a month or two. And so we wind up having to have this crazy analysis of, you know, do we let these folks stay in the community for a period of time while they're using, while we're waiting? Or do we have to use some conditional jail time to keep them safe, essentially, while we wait for them to get access to the treatment that they need? That's a challenge, and of course, that challenge is a function really of the lack of availability of more immediate inpatient treatment services for people who don't have the funds to pay for it. So that's a challenge that I think is going to be a continuing problem. I think right now we have, what, one person waiting, two people waiting in jail and for inpatient treatment, and another couple that are in inpatient treatment that are waiting to, are working through the system to get back to treatment court. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is, I think there could be an opportunity, I've raised this with a few folks already, to do something about medium level, and I'll put that in quotes, OWI defendants. We used to have a second track of treatment court that was for higher level OWIs. And we had drug court, essentially, drug court version of treatment court, and then we had the OWI version, track 1, track 2. With the legislature's change in sentencing for OWI 5s, in particular, and 6s, which essentially requires a year and a half of prison term as a mandatory sentence, or at least a prison term of up to a year as a mandatory sentence. We lost the opportunity to have these people in the community and work with them in treatment court. So over time, treatment court for purposes of OWI simply faded away. We've got an opportunity, though, I think, in terms of the folks who are working their way up to OWI 5s, to do something about the 3s and 4s. The problem with that, of course, is that the penalties associated with a 3 and a 4 are not as severe as the old OWI 5 risk. So the incentive to participate in something that's a little onerous is less. And so I think, though, there's an opportunity if we came up with a version of treatment court for OWIs that is a little less lengthy than regular treatment court, could be 6 months, 9 months, or something, and created a new kind of model patterned on treatment court, we might have a way to deal with folks for OWIs 3s and 4s. And these are scary cases, okay? These are people who can't stop drinking and driving, are already on number 3 or number 4, and they put our community at great risk. So it's just something to think about. We're hopefully going to have a chance to talk amongst the stakeholders that might be involved to develop something. But I'd like to see if we can actively work to keep 3s and 4s from becoming 4s and 5s in our community. So if anybody's got any questions about that, we can talk. Otherwise, I'll leave it to Kate to fill in any other blanks that she might like to around treatment court.
I would just mimic Judge Nordstrand. One thing that I did want to bring up, though, on looking at our TAD grant, I was doing the quarterly report. I went back to our last grant to see what I had written, what challenges we had. One of the challenges that I had wrote on the previous report is we are looking at more challenging cases now. So a new case has come up, they're in custody, but now they have a new case, but now they're being revoked on 3 other probation cases. So we have those 3 that we need to deal with. Then we find out they have 2 other cases in 2 opposite counties, maybe one in Minnesota also. So great, they're eligible on the one that they just came in on. We can do that fast, but now we have to get everybody else on the bandwagon for treatment court. The thing we want to look at is making sure that we're targeting these people before that happens. So we have worked really well with the DA's office, and I really want to thank Haley Williams that she's really finding these eligible defendants immediately and saying, yeah, I could put them on probation again, but I think they're going to reoffend here. So let's get them into treatment court now and not wait when they're just ready to be sent off to prison. So thank you, Carl. Your office has done fabulous the last few months.
Any questions about treatment court? All right, thanks.
Thank you. Next is Family Treatment Court. By way of introduction, the department, and specifically Jessica Dodge, who is one of the supervisors in the Child Protection Division, was instrumental in securing a grant from the state to explore a family treatment court model, which is really designed to help parents who have children in child protection cases. Many of those families, the kids have been taken out of home and placed in foster care or placed with other adult family members. And it's a model somewhat like adult treatment court, but specifically targeted at parents who have children in the child protection system. So Jessica, as I said, did a lot of work to get the grant for St. Croix County. The stakeholders are the obvious ones, the department, the courts, justice support, the Corporation Council, all those stakeholders who are involved in child protection. So for the last number of months, we have been looking at models. There are very few family treatment courts in Wisconsin. The one that's closest to us is Barron. And so we've had folks go to visit their court. But as I said, we're now in that implementation phase of policies and procedures and all of the nuances that come in developing a court. It was determined that Kate Brewer, who is our adult drug court coordinator, would head up this effort as well and be the coordinator for the family treatment court. And so we've asked Kate to kind of supplement where we're at and where we're heading. And so Kate, with that introduction, floor is yours.
Thank you. So like Judge Needham said, we're in the implementation phase. We have drafts of the policy and procedures done. Now our implementation team will now start meeting weekly until the end of the year. Then we are hoping to start taking referrals January 1st. That's really it.
Thank you. And I should mention Judge Waterman volunteered kind of to take on this responsibility. And so he will be our family treatment court judge. He would have been here this morning, but I know is just beginning a pro se criminal jury trial this morning, and so passed along his greetings, but also, as I said, his willingness to now be the responsible court official associated with family treatment court. So does anyone have any questions about that court? Yes, Chairman Long.
Do we have an expectation that there will continue to be grants available to help fund this program? Or do we know? I have to ask that question.
And I don't know if Mr. Raritt or others would be able to weigh in on that.
I'll lightly weigh in on it, but the assumption is that this funding will continue, and that's based on information I think that Jessica got from the state, that typically these sorts of efforts are funded going forward if they're successful. But I mean, given the state of things, we're not sure. Yeah.
Yes, Chair Fiedler.
Judge, I'll just look at Bob when I say this. I'm not sure if what I'm going to say is correct or not, but I believe when the legislature in Wisconsin acted last week on the biennial budget bill, I think they expanded the TAD program dramatically to include mental health. Is that what you picked up also, Bob?
You know, I would have to look at that, Supervisor Fiedler, because I looked at all of the budget results from the state budget, and that rings a bell, but I'd have to look at it more closely as to how it would impact this, yes.
And I think in terms of the grant, Chair Long, my recollection is that this initial phase was a competitive process, and St. Croix County was one of the counties that was selected to be involved in the development of family treatment courts, which would indicate to me, at least if I'm thinking correctly, that this is something the state is looking at, and if they're looking at pilots, I hope that means they see it as a worthwhile endeavor and would continue to fund it. But valid question, and one we'll monitor.
If I could add, Your
Yes.
Honor.
Yeah.
So if you noticed, who we appointed to lead that up is Kate Brewer, who's already a full-time employee. But because adult treatment numbers are down, you know, we sort of made sure she had some capacity that we can fill then with the family treatment. So instead of adding additional staffing, we're utilizing the existing staffing. So that's the bulk of the cost that we would normally see. And so we've done our best to minimize the fiscal impact of the county, and the grant is actually going to offset pre-existing expenses that we had.
So it's a revenue source, Chairman. Any other questions or comments about family treatment court? Seeing none. Treatment alternatives and diversion grant updates, Phil.
Sure, thank you, Judge. So just as a quick reminder to those that may not be familiar with our TAD grant, that's the Treatment Alternatives and Diversion, which partially funds our adult treatment court as well as our diversion program in the DA's office. We've been the recipient of this grant now for 11 years, I believe. Things are going well. Kate had mentioned we're working on our quarterly report, which is due at the end of this week. So Kate and Lisa and I put that together. Couple other updates. We have an open case manager position in our adult treatment court. Kayla Stesniak took a position, case management position in Health and Human Services. So we have that spot open. We have some applicants. We'll probably be interviewing the week of the 21st with the hope that we'll have somebody in place sometime in August. We have one more year of non-competitive grant funding through TAD. That will be 2026, which we'll be getting our application together this fall. And then 2027 is a big year for the TAD grant because it becomes competitive again for 5 years. So hopefully we'll be awarded, and have every confidence that we will be, a dollar amount for 5 years. But we go back into a pool with all the other counties that will be applying. Right now, I believe there's roughly 55 counties that receive a pool of $9 or $10 million. I think some things that I'm keeping an eye on are, what does that pool look like in 2027? I'm assuming it will be greater, probably 60 or more counties. And then what does the pool of money look like? Is it going to be greater than that? Is it going to be less than that? Again, it's a really nice grant right now. There's a 25% cash match that the county contributes. But those will be some things we'll probably know a year from now when that grant announcement comes out. So any questions? Or Kate, I don't know if you have anything to add about TAD?
Any questions or comments about the TAD grant? Seeing none. Court navigation updates. I'm going to call on Shelby Hilden to walk us through that. For those of you not familiar with Shelby, she started, I think, as a jailer in the jail, and then worked pretty extensively in what was the former iteration of Justice Support, which was the Day Report Center, which was then housed in the Sheriff's Department, and their primary function was to do all the testing that the courts were requiring of defendants who had drug, alcohol, or other issues. Shelby then moved into Justice Support, and she's going to talk to us about court navigation. But one observation I have about she's an innovator. I mean, she is someone who is always looking for all options and alternatives and ways to improve the justice support system. So I, on behalf of all the judges, would like to publicly thank Shelby for her innovation, for all of the ideas that she has, and court navigation, I think, is her newest idea. So Shelby, floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're continuing the work of our court navigation pilot, which I believe that we started at the end of February of this year. Specifically lately with the help of child support, Ari Heitkamp has been helping support this going forward as far as the hours dedicated to this project. We are assisting people immediately before and after their initial criminal court appearance. One of the areas that we're focusing on is earlier attorney appointment for those court users that are out of custody. A lot of times people appearing at court have little or no experience with the justice system. They maybe have never heard of a public defender or a court-appointed attorney, much less know how to navigate all of that. A court navigator is available before court to, without giving any sort of legal advice, provide information on the processes of obtaining an attorney and guiding the people to taking those steps before they even go in front of the judge, likely eliminating the need for any additional hearings just to check on attorney status. Likewise, in non-criminal forfeiture cases, such as operating without a valid license, we can often identify people who have, since the alleged offense, reinstated their license, and we're alerting the ADA prior to court so that they can potentially resolve the case, which could potentially eliminate the need for any future court appearances, and then also potentially avoid a criminal record for that court user. The court navigator is also able to help people with resources like local food shelves, AA meetings, things of that nature if the need's identified and the person wishes to engage. Something that I've noticed through this project that I didn't expect was the personal impact that a court navigator can have on these court users. People that are nervous, anxious, or even could be considered to be in some level of crisis when they are appearing in court. Just telling people that you're there to help guide them through the initial process and that you're going to be available after court if they have any questions that come up. I've often noted that I can see them relax, I can see them drop their shoulders, and seemingly be in a better mental state to have a meaningful, productive, and informed court appearance. In addition to those positive impacts on the court users, we're hopeful for there also to be positive impacts on the justice system. Looking at gathering data in the future as far as the average number of hearings per case, case lengths, things of that nature, and then also trying to understand the impact of this as far as the workload on other departments, having to help people navigate through our very complex court system by providing a go-to resource. That being said, even with Ari's help staffing this, we've been dedicating about 10 hours per week, and that's continuing to be difficult. An option that we've identified is a paid internship partnership with UWRF, where I understand UWRF would provide the funding. We've applied for that, but we have not heard back yet at this time. In anticipation of this potentially coming to fruition, in the background, we've also been working on building a reference guide to help support an intern in such a position. I think that's all I have.
Thank you. And I think I've had intake 2, maybe 3 times since we launched this project. And Shelby's right. For the majority of people who appear in court, other than those out of custody, it's an anxious moment and an anxious experience. And Shelby and her group who are there really have helped, in my opinion, just kind of lower the anxiety level. And people come up to the table at least with a sense as to what is going to happen next and what they should expect in terms of not only representation, but just the process, which, again, is a foreign. It's a scary process for most people who appear in court. So I've seen benefits already, Shelby, so thank you and Phil and others for launching this initiative, and hopefully we can continue to develop it. Judge Flack or Nordstrom, I don't know if you had any comments.
I second what you just said.
That's why he's a friend and mentor.
I think it's very useful in terms of limiting the number of appearances in court, too. If we can make progress on getting an attorney assigned, just those 2 things of identifying people who have are on a path to getting their license back, so we can turn criminal charges into non-criminal charges and get them out the door, get the clerk her $150, and we're on our way. You know, first of all, we've accomplished getting somebody with a license, which is what the DA's office wants, and we've got the case off our docket, rather than having all these hearings over and over. It's a big deal in terms of time and effort. And also, you know, when I first started here, a little over 6 years ago now, the public defenders engaged the people at intake. In other words, they're out in the hall, talking to folks, seeing who qualifies, doing some of that navigation work. You know, I think about PDs like John Kaczynski, who were out there helping people in the hall. You know, that's not happening now. They've got a new method. You have to call their office to find out if you qualify. You're not going to get any legal advice. You're going to talk to a staff person probably. And so they don't know what's going on. And so we've lost that. And I think this is a good way to bring some of that back, not legal advice, but help. Because, you know, we lost the opportunity to have people qualify for a PD immediately, right there and there. And then we know. And then we can give them a court-appointed attorney form if they don't qualify, and we can go to the next steps. But we can't do that because, you know, many times, I'd say half the time, people are calling the public defender's office and they don't answer. Okay, and that's another level of problem, but they have limitations too. But this is a good way to help the process.
Thank you. And just kind of as a segue, we also had a significant issue with those folks in custody trying to get a hold of and qualify for public defender. For a few years, the public defender required that those folks call. And so we were trying to triage through the jail, you know, how do they line them up with a phone to call? And we were getting really, really backed up in terms of representation. So I'll thank the sheriff publicly because he then, with the assistance of Captain Anderson and others, have made a room now available. So the public defender is physically coming here in the morning, I believe, to interview those folks in custody. So that's an area that has certainly improved in terms of qualifying people. And as Judge Nordstrand said, for everyone else, they have to call. And if Mr. Sartorius was here, I'm sure he would defend himself, but I will publicly say they're closed from noon to 1 o'clock every day. These are people who are showing up for 1 o'clock court, and that office is closed from noon to 1 o'clock. Enough said. Next item is the DA-led DHS diversion discussion. Mr. Raritt.
Thank you, Judge. I attended my first meeting regarding this topic last week, and Carl was there. A number of other departments were represented, but the effort is really intended, from my understanding, to assist with diversion and competency restoration for people that are in jail, and to look specifically at people with mental health and addiction disorders. For those people that are likely for competency, that competency could be restored, I think we were focused on that segment of the population. But the idea here is that DHS, the Department of Health Services at the state, is willing to pay for screenings, assessments, and potentially treatment and housing for people in these situations. I think our idea here is how could we divert people with behavioral health conditions away from jail, away from the correctional system, and towards the kind of help that might help them improve. So I don't know if the DA would have additional input. Again, this was the first meeting I attended. Our next steps are to look at how does that process look, what would DHS actually pay for, and what would the cost be around that, et cetera, a lot of the details that go into developing something like this. But the intention seemed to be a meaningful effort on behalf of the state and multiple departments here to do something differently that would help people in these situations.
Thank you. So, yeah, this isn't anything that they're doing anywhere else in the state. They're looking to basically brainstorm the state DHS and pilot some sort of program. The challenge with people in competency is prior to them regaining competency, they're totally irrational. They're not willing to do medication or agree to any sort of diversion. So I think at first DHS was hoping we could somehow divert them before they go to competency stage, but there's just, the reality is if they get to that point, there's nothing, there's no talking reason with that person. But what we've kind of landed on as the goal would be, rather than somebody going to competency restoration at inpatient treatment and then getting out and then basically being on their own, is having a more of a system in place where it's a soft handoff where they are working with county DHS so that when the person leaves inpatient, they're already set up with services in the community so that they don't just revert immediately back once they're out. So that's, I think, the goal that we've kind of landed on that's attainable. We'll see how it works out as far as, you know, again, our capacity to pay for stuff after they're out is limited. There are some existing programs that the county has, such as the community support program. So I think one thing we're kind of looking for is the first case that would be a good fit to use it on or to try it.
Thank you. Anecdotally, I know that within the last 2 weeks, I've signed 3 requests for competency evaluations. And it's just a growing phenomena where attorneys are raising competency. We have those evaluations done through the Wisconsin Forensic Unit, and depending on what their recommendation is, if it is that this person is not competent currently but can be restored to competence, what does that look like? How does it work? If it's going to be inpatient, and maybe the sheriff has a better idea than I do, but oftentimes it can take weeks, if not months, to get people into Mendota. So in the meantime, they're sometimes sitting in our jail while we're waiting to get them into Mendota, but there is now also an option to restoration of competency in our local jails, and I think that's what Bob was referring to when the state arguably is saying maybe that's a better alternative. Let's see what services we can provide because we're not getting them into Mendota, and there's just that challenge of getting people to a point where their cases can move forward, but doing it in a way that is humane, so to speak, and gets them the help they need up front. So any questions or comments about that issue or topic? Public protection and judiciary, as I said, we're pleased to, as you know, chairman of that committee is Bob Fiedler, who is a sitting member of this body, but his entire committee is here this morning to observe and hopefully understand what we do as a body and how it interfaces in many respects with the work of that committee. But we asked Chair Fiedler to kind of update us as to that connection. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Judge, for the invitation to be with you today and for your amazing contributions to what we do at the Public Protection and Judiciary Committee. I know you did this earlier, but I do want to just recognize again our Deputy Chair, Kathy Leaf, Paul Adams, Mark Carlson, and Tim Ramberg, who are in the back of the room. And please, anybody, feel free to always chat with them. They're wide open to your ideas, and we really appreciate all the ideas we get from the CJCC and its committees. I do want to also, on behalf of our committee, thank Judge Vlack. I know the Chief Judge mentioned very thoughtfully all the different things Judge Vlack has done over the last few decades for our county, but I particularly think of him as having, one, appeared before our committee, two, an amazing presentation he made a couple of years ago to a symposium that we supported on elder care, and the judge spent well over an hour with us and had a wonderful written presentation, stayed around for additional comments, and was just one simple example of what he does beyond being in robes and beyond what we might normally see him do. The other thing I always think of when I think of Judge Black is Memorial Day, Judge. And typically, you and I find ourselves down at the cemetery in River Falls with your dog in the back of the ceremony next to the brick wall under a tree. And I get a chance to chat with Judge Black for about an hour while we're also listening carefully to what's going on. And just wonderful insights about what's happening and what's happening with the River Falls Volunteer Fire Department, which Judge Black has been a member of for years and years. And we deeply appreciate what he's done on behalf of the committee. Thank you, Judge. Just a couple rote things. I mean, we're 5 members from the county board make up the Public Protection and Judiciary Committee. We serve 2-year terms. We meet more or less monthly. We skip a couple of meetings, maybe in December. But we have our next meeting is actually a unique meeting that we do once a year. We meet for the jail inspection with the sheriff. And we spend about 2 or 3 hours down in the jail with him and his very fine staff and review as much as we can every aspect of what's happening down in the jail. I'm privileged to sit on one of the committees of this council, the Criminal Committee, which Judge Waterman chairs. And I know when I attend that, I always get 3 or 4 ideas and pick up so much information about what's happening, which I try to share with our PPJ committee. And then, of course, during our normal meetings, we hear from Judge Needham almost always. We've heard from Judge Nordstrom, Judge Waterman, Judge Black, always over the years. The clerk of court, the medical examiner, our child support agency, emergency support services, and CASA and others are regular entities of the county that appear before the Public Protection and Judiciary Committee. But we truly value the work of this council and the insights that we get from you and the ideas that are passed along, particularly by Phil Golly, because we always call on the chief judge to make a presentation. He does make remarks, then he calls on Phil for details. And Phil provides very thoughtful remarks in that regard. So we thank you again, Judge, for inviting us to join you today. This is a tremendous asset to our community, and we really appreciate what everybody does here.
Well, and thank you, Chair, for the work of the committee, and I think I can speak on behalf of the judges and all the stakeholders. That committee is always receptive to our thoughts, our comments, our suggestions, and we see it as a true partnership between that branch of government and our branch of government. So thanks to the Chair and the committee members for their attendance today, but also for all the work that they do, not only with that committee, but the county board in and of itself. Any questions or comments of Chair Fiedler? Sequential intercept model mapping workshop debrief. Mr. Golly.
Thank you, Judge. So 3 weeks ago, we hosted a 1.5-day workshop, which a lot of you attended. So thank you again if you attended, if you sent staff. It was really beneficial. I hope everybody else found it insightful. We had 40 staff from the county and adjacent departments. Yeah, it was a really unique opportunity to work with folks from SAMHSA to look at our system specifically in the kind of overlapping pieces of our criminal legal system and behavioral health. So the first kind of half of Tuesday, I guess that was, we got some information from them, and then we started to look at our system, and then we set goals on that Wednesday. And we came up with, I think after we collapsed our goals for what we want to work on, about a handful. And we'll be getting a report from them. I think Bob and I got a preliminary report a week or so ago. But probably here in the next 6 or so weeks, we'll be getting a report recapping the work that we did. And I'll pass that along to everybody, and then we can talk about it hopefully in September. So I guess this is just my thought about how maybe we proceed is we get that report and we kind of revisit those goals, and then maybe we select one goal to work towards for the next 6 months. And I think, and this is again not like a unilateral decision, certainly we put that work in the Behavioral Health Subcommittee of the CJCC. That's where this idea kind of took off. So those are my thoughts. I would welcome anyone's input, you know, about your time there or maybe what you heard.
I was present for portions, and it was interactive. The two facilitators were from, as I recall, South Carolina and Pennsylvania, and really, in my opinion, did a good job of engaging all of the folks that were there. And as Phil said, it wasn't just St. Croix County. We invited other agencies to participate and look at really what was mapping from the moment someone is touched by the criminal justice system to the point of where their case is ultimately resolved. What are all those various steps? What are all those various points along that continuum where all those agencies maybe can be engaged, maybe can be drawn in, and I think as we've all said here earlier, to get them help, if that's in essence what the ultimate goal is, to rehabilitate and to safely have people in the community. You know, what are those trigger points? Just kind of a side story, the first morning the woman from South Carolina shared that she stayed here at a local hotel and realized that we didn't have taxis or Ubers in St. Croix County, so called Phil, and Phil picked her up at the hotel and became her Uber to get her from her hotel to the meeting. So small town visits, a woman from Charleston, South Carolina. Any other comments from anyone else who was at any portion of that meeting? I know Supervisor Leaf was there, and I know Supervisor Telejohn was there. Any comments, Supervisor?
I agree with everything that's been commented on, and it was very insightful to hear everybody. That was a large group of people. It was, what, 50 people? And it was very insightful to hear from everybody, then have the breakout tables, and it was very insightful.
Thank you. Anyone else? Next is Kara Aubert is going to make a presentation. Kara's now with the UW Extension. She's worn several hats here in the county in terms of her work with justice support and then with the department. And now will make a presentation on behalf of the UW. Ms. Aubert.
Thank you. Good morning. Is the mic on?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for having me. My name is Kara Albert. I'm a new educator with UW Extension in the Human Development and Relationships Institute, specifically Family Engagement and Relationships Program. So my role is all about supporting parents and caregivers, helping them navigate parenting and child development using tools and programs backed by research at UW-Madison. This work is part of something called the Wisconsin Idea. So it's really about making sure the university's knowledge and resources reach people in every part of the state, not just on campus. Today I'm just going to talk about what makes up our program priorities, the initial programming and community partnerships that we've made, and touch on what we plan to continue as we move forward. So our program priorities, as I get started in this role, I'm focusing on the four main priorities. They are all grounded in what we know from developmental science and communication best practices. First, helping kids grow and thrive. We want to support children's development in every way, emotionally, socially, and cognitively, by giving families the tools they need to nurture that growth. Second, strengthening family relationships. Safe, stable, and loving relationships are the heart of a healthy family. We work to support those connections, especially between parents and kids. Helping families through tough transitions, whether it's divorce or incarceration or housing instability. We're here to help them build resilience and find stability during those times. And then supporting professionals who work with families. We also work with educators, social workers, and other professionals, offering training and resources so they can better serve the families they work with. These priorities guide everything we do, and they help us stay focused on what really matters, which is families and children. The initial programming that we have decided on as we get started in St. Croix County, we've prioritized these four. The literacy link with St. Croix County Jail, Parents Forever via the St. Croix County Family Court, resilient co-parenting and triple P positive parenting program with child support, and additional programming and brief interventions with those that serve at-risk populations, right now being Grace Place and Turning Point. So first, one of the programs that I'm excited to bring to the county is the Literacy Link. It's a suite of strategies designed for parents who are incarcerated and their young children and families. Strategies include parenting classes, tools to help parents stay connected with their children, and other support for families during incarceration. Making Reading Memories is one of the programs under that umbrella that we have identified as being the best fit to first roll out in the county. It supports healthy relationships, emergent literacy skills, and strengthens parents' knowledge and behaviors through reading stories to their children via recordings. The goal is to make or keep those relationships strong, even when the families are physically apart. After meeting with the jail education and programming coordinator this week, we actually plan to implement this in the jail this September. Parents Forever is another program I'll be offering. It is a 4-hour class for parents who are going through divorce, separation, or custody changes. It meets the state's requirements for divorce education, and it is offered at a very low cost for individuals. I'll be working with the St. Croix County Family Court to deliver this program, and they will refer their parents directly to sign up for that class. We also offer 2 other really great programs, Resilient Co-Parenting and Triple P Positive Parenting Program. Resilient Co-Parenting, it helps parents navigate co-parenting with topics like setting boundaries, managing finances, and coping with change, among others. And Triple P Positive Parenting Program, it covers a wide range of topics, from encouraging positive behavior to building emotional resilience in kids, and serves a wide range of ages and stages. These are programs that I have been discussing with St. Croix County Child Support in order to support their clients and staff, among others in the county. And then reaching vulnerable families. A big part of my work will focus on families who are especially vulnerable, those experiencing homelessness, frequent moves, or domestic violence. For these families, I'll offer free classes, support, and educational materials. This might include short workshops, brief one-on-one sessions, or longer classes, whichever fits their needs best. Programs like Just-in-Time Parenting, which is a newsletter that can be delivered straight to the family that focuses on the developmental age of their child as they grow. And Triple P are great for offering quick and practical support when they need it most. As I continue to learn more about the needs in St. Croix County, I'll be adding to the programs I offer. And beyond the in-person work, families can also access over 80 virtual classes through UW Extension. So support is always available to them, even if it's not directly here in the county. So thank you again for your time. I'm really excited to be doing this work with St. Croix County and being part of the community. So if you have any questions, ideas, or want to collaborate, I'm here to connect.
Thank you. Any questions of Kara? And again, Kara, I'll also offer, our services to help support what you're doing, because it appears to be directly linked to much of what this group does, either collectively or the individual stakeholders. And I don't know if you know the answer, but for families that are going through divorces, parents are required to complete what's called Parents in Transition. It's a program that I think is mandatory. Does your program, will that qualify, do you know, or have you asked about that?
Yes, it should meet the state mandated requirements for that education component.
Great, so that's another alternative that we're going to be able to offer parents who are navigating that challenge. Any other questions of Kara? Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely.
Last item are the subcommittee reports. I'll first call on Anjali Patel, who is our Assistant Corporation Counsel, chairs that particular subcommittee, but also is the primary, for lack of better terminology, prosecutor for child protection petitions and other matters. Ms. Patel.
We don't have much of an update. We've met once since the last time this committee met. We met last week. Primarily, we had a educational session by CCS, so everybody could get more information on what type of services are offered through CCS and how people become engaged in that program, what type of insurance or other funding options are available for that. We have printed all of the pamphlets that we have worked on up to this point. So we have 3 different informational sheets about CHIPS cases for all the parents involved in those cases. We also have information for kids in delinquency cases, as well as parents in delinquency cases, and juveniles in need of protection or services. There are copies on the side table if anybody wants to take a look at those. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 11th at noon. I believe that's going to be in the Glenwood City room. That's all I have for today.
Thank you. Questions of Ms. Patel? Another project that that group is working on, and that's also part of another initiative, are what we call tailored dispositional orders for child protection primarily, but also juvenile justice. I think it's safe to say that prior to that project and its hopeful results, we sometimes would give parents in a child protection case, 3 pages of conditions and things that we expected them to meet and goals and objectives, which was overwhelming. So with the assistance of the state, we're now trying to tailor those and collapse them into a format that's understandable, a format that's really doable. So that's another effort of the committee. And then finally, Ms. Patel doesn't know this, but this subcommittee is going to be the parent committee for Family Treatment Court and will be the oversight committee. So that'll be another area that we'll have to discuss and develop. So
Okay.
thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Patel.
Thank you.
Criminal justice, Judge Waterman chairs that particular subcommittee. As I said, he's engaged in a jury trial. Phil is going to report out, or Shelby.
I'm just going to do one quick update, then I'm going to give it to Shelby. So the next meeting is Monday, August 11th at noon in room 2100. And then Shelby's going to talk about a project between Justice Support, Sheriff's Office, Clerk of Courts, and the DA's office.
Thank you. I can provide a brief overview on what we have put together as far as a firearm surrender policy, and talk a little bit about pretrial's role within that, but then other departments may wish to chime in. It was recently brought to our attention that a more defined, robust protocol with firearm surrenders were sought, and a work group was convened to develop this process for both criminal and civil cases. Those are dealt with differently. Again, I can speak to the criminal cases, as those will now involve some justice support monitoring. So in criminal cases, a bond condition may be ordered for a person to surrender their firearms within 24 hours of release. That would be paired with justice support monitoring and the requirement to report to justice support services immediately upon release. At that initial meeting, justice support staff provide firearm surrender information to the defendant. So that's a handout that's been provided by the sheriff's office, information about having the firearms unloaded and things of that nature. Justice support staff then facilitate a phone call to the sheriff's office to schedule that surrender and provide a statement of firearms form. Justice support staff monitor whether the defendant does in fact complete this process and subsequently file a report with either the receipt of the firearm surrender or otherwise notification of the failure to do so. And just to say it one more time, again, this is justice support's role within criminal cases. Civil cases are dealt with differently. There's additional protocols, forms, etc. And I don't know if anyone else wants to provide more information in that area. But that's justice support's role.
I guess I can about civil cases. The Wisconsin courts have had an established policy for firearm surrender, and I think this model very much mirrors what that is. Again, there are additional restriction potentially, but I think the process is very similar to the criminal process.
And this project really is just fills a void because periodically we do order folks who are appearing in court to surrender firearms, and judge just assumed certain things. And I think we all know what assumptions do to any one of us. And so this was an area that Phil and Shelby and Judge Waterman's committee took on. And now we have a very robust and specific program and policy to make sure that it's being done, then that we have a way to monitor it. So thank you for that. Any questions of Shelby or Phil about Criminal Justice Subcommittee? Hearing none. Treatment Court, we've heard from Judge Nordstrand and Kate. Their next meeting is July 23 at noon in room 2800. Domestic violence, Judge Vlack, Phil.
Real quick, I want to publicly thank all the members of the subcommittee. I'm thinking that we started, I think, in 2016 with the concept of a domestic violence court, and finally initiated that, I think, in April 2019. And I especially want to thank Craig Hoyman and Mark Lemke. When I approached them and said, can you do this, they actually brought what they wanted to put together without even me asking. And again, thank you, gentlemen, very much. And Chief Ricker at Turning Point, you spearheaded the initiation of lethality assessments. And for those who are not familiar with that, when an incident happens, law enforcement is asking questions of the victim right then and there to find out how susceptible are they to some very serious injury or often death. Also, restorative services for initiating evidence-based evaluations for domestic cases. They're the only agency I know in this area that does those. And as the judges know, I will not accept something that's not evidence-based. I don't want to try to explain that, but it's very important, and they also provide services. Last thing, our next meeting is 11:30 on July 30th. Anybody wants a free pizza lunch, you're welcome to join us. So, thank you.
And that's the other thing we'll miss about Judge Black. He is a gracious provider for pizzas more times than I can think to the back hallway. So I'm not sure who's going to pick that up. Judge Smithstead maybe will be tasked with now being the pizza man. Behavioral health, Bob Rarrett.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you for pronouncing my name right every time. The Behavioral Health Subcommittee last met on June 2nd, and our next meeting will be July 28th at the Services Center in New Richmond. At the last meeting, we had a recap discussion of a Western and Northern Region Crisis Summit that was held in Rice Lake toward the end of May. The summit consisted of human service directors, law enforcement, legislators, some board members, not from St. Croix County, I don't think. But the effort there was to look at our crisis system in western Wisconsin specifically, and the lack of beds that are available for urgent care, behavioral health urgent care. Our idea was to work with legislators on coming up with ideas that could be implemented in the state budget that would support development of really early intervention strategies. We had initially looked at development of regional urgent care facilities. I called CUCOFs in state language, crisis urgent care and observation facilities. In the state budget, they ended up putting in $10 million for startup of these regional facilities, but there is no plan that I'm aware of for sustainability. So that idea is sort of hanging out there without, I think, anyone willing to take it on. What we suggested was building up the co-responder, peer support, mental health officer concepts and growing those workforces within these county regions in order to prevent people from having to go to hospitals or crisis services in the first place. That funding did not make it through in the state budget. We also discussed the sequential intercept model at the time the training was upcoming, or the mapping session was upcoming. We talked about the jail-based competency restoration collaboration that we've talked about already today. We had some grant updates, abuse in later life, family treatment court, and we talked about opioid settlement dollars. There's a match offered through Vital Strategies. It's a global public health organization that offered up to $100,000 match for counties who have already committed or already received opioid settlement dollars. We applied for that match, and we'll see if we get that later this month. And I think lastly, we talked about changes. At the time, it was proposed changes to SNAP or food share benefits that were in the House budget. And that was it, except for some changes related to CDC requirements for vaccinations that had some applicability to this committee at the time. I think that's it, Judge.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Rarrett about the Behavioral Health Subcommittee? Seeing none, that completes our formal agenda. Again, if anyone has ideas for future agenda items, please communicate those to Phil, to me, to any member of the executive committee. We welcome your thoughts and ideas, and with our public protection friends here today, if there are things that you believe we can collaborate on and work together on, don't hesitate, again, to let Chair Fiedler know, and we'd be happy to assist or support. Any announcements to be made today? Seeing none, our next meeting is on September 11, same place, same time. And with that said, we are adjourned. Thank you all. Yes. Oh, thank you. So Judge Smith said investiture will be on August 1st at 3:30. I believe in his courtroom 2. I believe there's going to be a reception afterwards down in the jury assembly room. So please, if any of you are available, attend. It's a very important event for Judge Smithstead, but also I think St. Croix County. So he'll be sworn in. I believe Judge Vlack is doing the honors of administering the oath. We've invited all of the judges of the 10th District, and we generally have a pretty good turnout. So if any of you are available, please attend his investiture August 1st, 3:30. Thanks, Sheriff, for reminding me of that. Yes, Chair Fiedler. Judge Vlack's retirement is the 25th at 2 to 4 down in the jury assembly room. Again, if you're available, please attend and extend your thanks to him. Any other announcements? Announcements. No, we won't go there. Thank you. We're adjourned. What a horrible way to die.